Sir, I request permission to use the firing range today. Before Colonel Marcus Steele's desk, a 12-year-old girl stood ramrod straight, small, and alone. She was Maya Johnson, the daughter of a fallen hero. The colonel's sharp blue eyes were fixed on Maya, a cruel smirk on his lips. "Are you serious, kid?" he asked, his tone mocking, as if speaking to a foolish pet. Beside him, dozens of other high-ranking officers guffawed their eyes on Maya like sharpened spears. Maya didn't look at their eyes. She only looked straight at Colonel Steele. The perfect military posture her father, Sergeant David Johnson, had taught her made her stand as steady as a small oak tree in a storm. Her small hands were clenched at her sides, holding a time-faded envelope. On her thin chest, her father's Medal of Honor gleamed quietly, a testament to his ultimate bravery, and a painful reminder of the price she had to pay. "Sir, I request permission to use the firing range today." Maya repeated, her voice small, but containing a strange power. Her hands trembled slightly, a tiny betrayal of the emotion she tried to hide. "Today marks the 3-year anniversary of my father's death in combat. I want to honor him by practicing shooting just as he taught me before he deployed." Maya's words only added fuel to the fire. Colonel Steele slammed his hand on the desk, his laughter even louder this time. "Did you hear that the little girl thinks she knows how to shoot?" he boomed, turning to the other officers. "What's next? Is she going to demand to fly one of our fighter jets?" Jeers and malicious whispers echoed around Maya. Major Thompson muttered, "Kids should be playing with dolls." Captain Williams added, "A little girl should be in school not messing with guns." Each word was like a small knife, but Maya had learned how to build an invisible wall to protect her heart. She pretended not to hear, but every word was etched into her mind, becoming a new scar. The humiliation made her cheeks burn, but she kept her face impassive, for her father had taught her that composure was a soldier's strongest weapon. What the powerful men in this room didn't know was that Sergeant David Johnson was no ordinary soldier. He was not only a father, but also a mysterious sharpshooter who held the unofficial base record, a quiet legend only whispered among seasoned soldiers. And for 6 years, every afternoon after school, every weekend, he had passed on all his knowledge, composure, and skill to his little daughter. 3 years ago, on the day her father died, standing before his American flag-draped grave, Maya had whispered a promise. A promise no one heard, but it had become a burning fire in her heart. It was a promise to become the person her father wanted her to be, a promise never to let the world belittle her and her family. That promise had driven her to practice in secret every day in the silence of pain and loneliness. Colonel Steele stood up, his large frame casting a shadow over Maya. He walked around his desk, each step deliberately menacing. "Listen up, kid," he said, his tone full of contempt. "This isn't a place for children to play soldier. Guns aren't toys, and our firing range isn't a playground. Go home, watch cartoons, and leave important matters to the adults." The shame made blood rush to Maya's face, but she took a deep breath, feeling a familiar calmness rise from within. It wasn't anger, but a perfect control, the kind of strength her father had taught her to deal with life's challenges. This composure had helped her get through her friends' taunts and her teachers' doubts. "Sir, with all due respect," Maya replied, her voice so unnaturally calm that some of the laughing officers fell silent. "I have all the necessary paperwork supervision approved by the Military Family Affairs Department, and the safety requirements have been met. My request is in accordance with base regulations." Major Peterson almost choked on his whiskey. The little girl even knows the regulations. How cute. Laughter erupted again, but this time a few officers felt uncomfortable. It was then that Maya's eyes met Colonel Steele's directly for the first time. In her dark, glistening eyes there was no fear, only a silent determination, a suppressed power that seemed too great for her small body. It was the look of veterans who had faced storms and survived. That look made Colonel Steele's arrogant smile falter for a moment. He shook his head, hiding his sudden confusion. "The girl is stubborn. All right, if you insist, we'll try a small test. If you can hit at least 3 out of 10 targets at a distance of 165 feet, I will personally sign your permit. But when you fail miserably, I want you to promise never to bother important men with these childish dreams again." A fire blazed in Maya's chest, but she kept her face impassive. "I accept your offer, sir." It was not a challenge, but a promise, an oath. She knew this was not just a shooting test. This was a chance to prove her worth, to honor her deceased father, and for the fire in her heart to burn brightly. There, amid all the contemptuous and mocking glances, the little girl stood firm, as if holding a secret too powerful, too precious to reveal before the right time. The men didn't know that Maya Johnson hadn't just come to remember her father. She had come to fulfill a promise to turn the most painful humiliation of her life into a legendary performance, a story that would be told forever on this military base. If this story of courage, determination, and promises is touching your heart, get ready to witness how a simple 12-year-old girl with her father's Medal of Honor on her chest is about to rewrite history and make the most arrogant men the U.S. Army ever produced bow their heads in shame. Colonel Steele's predatory smile widened like a shark smelling blood in the water. Perfect. Let everyone witness a lesson in knowing one's place. He gestured theatrically to the other officers. Gentlemen, let's go to the firing range and watch a child learn about reality. Laughter rang out. Major Thompson rubbed his hands together, his eyes filled with cruel anticipation. This will be better than a movie. The girl will run out crying before she can even hold the gun. The other officers laughed, imagining the public humiliation about to unfold. They had no idea they were walking into a play they thought was theirs, but in reality, it belonged to Maya. As they walked down the hallway, Maya silently trailed a few steps behind. Every malicious comment, every sneering laugh was a jab in her ears. I bet she passes out after the first shot, Captain Williams whispered. Or she'll start crying for her mommy. What they didn't know was that Maya was used to these sounds. Furthermore, they didn't know that she had been to this very firing range hundreds of times. In the 3 years since her father's passing, Maya had secretly come here every Saturday morning at 5:30 while the base was still asleep. The maintenance man, a veteran who had served with David Johnson, would always quietly unlock the gate for her, an unspoken agreement of respect and camaraderie. At the firing range, Colonel Steele gestured to a table where several standard pistols lay. Choose your tool of humiliation, kiddo. I recommend the lightest one. Maybe you can hold it without dropping it. Maya walked to the table, her composure in stark contrast to the chaos of the officer's room earlier. Her fingers lightly grazed the weapon, stopping at a Glock 19 pistol. It wasn't just a gun, but a memento. It was the exact model her father had used to teach her the fundamentals of shooting when she was just 7 years old. An interesting choice, Steele commented with fake interest. At least you have a sense of style in your failure. The laughter resumed, but this time some of the watching soldiers no longer seemed so sure about the entertaining nature of the show. They sensed something was different. Sergeant Rodriguez, the base's shooting instructor, stepped forward, his face etched with discomfort. He had served with David Johnson and knew the legend of the man very well. Sir Colonel, perhaps we should have more supervision for a minor. Nonsense. Steele cut him off sharply, the cruelty in his voice making some of his subordinates frown. The girl wants to play soldier, so let her learn like a real one. No coddling, no hand-holding. Maya paid no mind to the argument. She inspected the Glock 19 with professional movements so fluid that Sergeant Rodriguez had to blink twice in surprise. She detached the magazine, checked the chamber, and tested the trigger. Every movement was executed with the precision of someone who had done this 1,000 times. Well, Steele mumbled, his amusement growing. Looks like your dad taught you some basic tricks before he paused, before he wasn't here to protect you anymore. The cruel remark was like a knife plunging into Maya's heart. Her blood boiled, but she had been taught to control her emotions. She kept her face expressionless, allowing the pain and anger to transform into focus, into power. Then something unexpected happened. Maya closed her eyes. In that brief moment, she envisioned her father's face, the lessons he had taught, the promise she had whispered by his grave. When she opened her eyes, a subtle but profound transformation had occurred. The anxious 12-year-old girl was gone, replaced by a different, far more focused and dangerous person. Ready when you give the order, Maya said, her voice carrying a cold confidence that made the veterans present exchange knowing looks. It was the tone seasoned soldiers used just before embarking on impossible missions. Colonel Steele stood behind her, arms crossed, surrounded by officers who were whispering bets on how many shots she would miss. All right, kid, 10 shots. Targets at 165 feet. Remember, you only need to hit 3 to win our little deal. That should be easy for someone with family training. What the arrogant men didn't know was that David Johnson wasn't just a good shot. He had been the unofficial trainer for the base's best snipers, the person other soldiers came to when they needed to hone their skills for life-or-death missions. And Maya. His little daughter had absorbed every lesson, every technique, every secret he had accumulated in 2 decades of military service. All of it was about to be laid bare right now. More importantly, these arrogant men had no idea about the 4,847 hours Maya had spent practicing over the last 3 years. Every Saturday morning, every holiday, every free moment, all were dedicated to honoring her father by becoming the person he would have been proud to witness. As Maya got into position, the atmosphere seemed to change. The wind stopped blowing. The laughter died down, and even Colonel Steele felt a chill run down his spine as if he were about to witness something that defied all logic. Every new taunt, every cruel comment was just a gust of wind fanning the flame inside her. A silent power fortified by the very injustice they sought to impose. They didn't know that each act of contempt was writing their own sentence of humiliation. And Maya Johnson, the little girl they ridiculed, was about to become the enforcer of justice. Maya took her firing stance with movements so fluid that Sergeant Rodriguez frowned. There was something very familiar about that posture. Feet placed with military precision, shoulders aligned, breath controlled. A ghost from the past was materializing before his eyes. "What are you waiting for, kiddo?" Steele taunted, his voice echoing across the range like a bugle call. "Do you need someone to help you hold the gun? Or maybe someone to point out the target for you?" The other officers laughed again, their laughter like that of well-fed hyenas pleased with their own wit. They had no idea that each laugh was fueling the little girl's strength. Maya closed her eyes for 3 seconds, just as her father had taught her. "Breathe deep, princess. Feel the wind. Listen to the quiet between your heartbeats." David's voice echoed in her memory like a whispered prayer. When she opened her eyes, the atmosphere had completely shifted. A few passing soldiers stopped, drawn by a different energy emanating from the small figure on the firing line. It was as if an invisible switch had been flipped. "Ready when you give the order?" Maya said, her voice possessing a supernatural calm that even Steele hesitated for a moment. Sergeant Rodriguez quietly stepped forward. A veteran who had served 3 tours in Afghanistan, he had served under David Johnson. Rodriguez knew exactly who had trained this girl and what it meant for the arrogant men who were about to get the lesson of their lives. "Colonel," Rodriguez said respectfully but firmly, "perhaps we should ensure everyone is wearing proper ear protection for safety." Steele looked at him with annoyance. "Nonsense, Sergeant. It's just 10 shots from a scared kid. We don't need the full military protocol to watch a failure in the making." Rodriguez nodded quietly, but stood in a strategic position to intervene if needed. He knew a secret no one else there knew. David Johnson was not just an excellent soldier. He had been the unofficial trainer for the base's most dangerous snipers, the person other veterans sought out when they needed to learn life-saving techniques in a combat zone. "All right, kiddo," Steele announced with increasing cruel amusement. "You have 60 seconds for 10 shots. Start now." Bang! Maya's first shot echoed across the firing range like a dry, precise thunderclap. Before the sound could fade, bang! The second shot followed with a rhythm that made some nearby veterans unconsciously straighten their backs. It was the rhythm of someone who had fired thousands of rounds, not hundreds. Through his binoculars, Rodriguez watched the target with growing admiration and astonishment. "My God," he whispered to himself. "She's better than her dad." Steele was still laughing when the third shot rang out, but his laughter began to sound strained. There was something about the shot's precision that didn't match the expectation of a public humiliation. "At least she's fast," Major Thompson commented, trying to maintain his mocking tone. "Maybe she wants to get the embarrassment over with." What they didn't know was that for the past 3 years, Maya had not only practiced shooting, but had also studied every movement, every breath, every heartbeat her father had taught her. For 1,095 consecutive days, she had woken up at 5 in the morning to practice at a makeshift range behind her house. And more importantly, they didn't know about the 847 hours of mental training Maya had developed, focused techniques that allowed her to completely block out all external distractions and achieve a state of concentration that trained soldiers take years to reach. Bang, bang, bang. The fourth, fifth, and sixth shots followed with mechanical precision, beginning to cause uneasy whispers among the audience. Even the officers who had been ridiculing her started to exchange worried glances. Taking a long time to check the targets, Captain Williams mumbled, his earlier confidence beginning to waver. Rodriguez knew exactly why no one was in a hurry to check the initial results. Some of the veterans present had recognized the sound, the distinctive metallic ping that only occurs when a bullet hits the exact center of the target. Maya continued to shoot with uncanny calm. Each shot followed the last with perfect timing. No rushing, no anxiety, just the systematic execution of a skill honed through years of silent dedication. The seventh shot rang out, and Steele's predatory smile completely vanished. The eighth and the officer's whispers also fell silent. The ninth, an absolute stillness spread across the firing range like an invisible wave of unease. As Maya prepared for the 10th and final shot, something miraculous happened. Instead of just aiming at the target, she subtly adjusted her stance, compensating for a gust of wind that no one else noticed. It was an instinctive reaction, a sophisticated technique found only in truly exceptional sharpshooters. Bang! The final shot rang out as decisive as an announcement that something important had just happened. Maya lowered her pistol, her movements perfectly fluid. She engaged the safety and turned around facing Steele. 10 shots completed as requested, sir, she said with military formality. For the first time since she had arrived, Steele looked genuinely flustered. Maya's calm confidence didn't match the humiliation he had so carefully planned. Rodriguez stepped forward, holding a high magnification binocular ready to confirm what everyone suspected, but no one dared to admit. The veteran had witnessed many excellent shooters, but he had never seen anything that defied all expectations like this. The arrogant men didn't know that Maya had come not just to fulfill a deal. She had come to prove that some legacies are much greater than those who try to diminish them, and true strength often grows in places where others only see superficial weakness. As Rodriguez focused the binoculars on the target 165 feet away, his face went pale. A chill ran down Steele's spine. The sight before Rodriguez's eyes seemed to exceed the limits of human capability. The silence after Maya's final shot was so deep that everyone could hear the wind whispering through the flags on the base. Rodriguez kept the binoculars focused, his expression shifting from professional curiosity to utter disbelief. And then to profound respect. "Sergeant Rodriguez," Steele said, his voice trying to sound composed but revealing his anxiety. "What's the result? I'm sure we can start preparing this little one's lesson in reality." Rodriguez slowly lowered the binoculars, his face ashen. He only looked at Maya with a mix of admiration and shock. "Colonel," his voice came out as if the words didn't want to leave his throat. I need you to see for yourself." For the first time, Steele lost his confidence. "What do you mean, see for myself? How many did she hit? 5, 6? His voice carried the desperation of someone who felt the ground beginning to crumble under his feet. "Sir," Rodriguez held out the binoculars with slightly trembling hands. "All 10 shots, they... He stopped, shaking his head, unable to believe what he had just seen. "Colonel, you need to see for yourself." Steele snatched the binoculars abruptly. His hands were suddenly unsteady. As he focused on the target, the arrogance on his face collapsed like a house of cards in a storm. What he saw was not only beyond all expectations, but also beyond his understanding of the limits of human ability. All 10 shots had not only hit the bullseye, but had formed such a tight grouping that it looked like just one slightly larger hole. It was a level of precision that professional snipers take years to achieve, performed by a 12-year-old girl as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "No way," Steele mumbled, checking and rechecking the target. "It must be some kind of trick, a equipment malfunction or something." Maya remained silent, watching the unraveling of the arrogance that had tormented her just moments ago. There was no cruel triumph on her face, only the dignified composure of someone who had done exactly what she had promised. Major Thompson stepped forward, grabbing the binoculars from Steele's hands. His reaction was even more dramatic. He recoiled as if he had been punched. "My God, that's a better grouping than anything I've seen in 20 years of military service." One by one, the officers checked the target. One by one, their confident expressions turned into quiet shock Captain Williams, who had scoffed at the idea of a little girl, was completely silenced by the undeniable evidence of the competence he had underestimated. At that moment, Rodriguez made a decision that would change everything forever. He moved closer to Maya, speaking loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Ms. Johnson, your father would be the proudest man on the planet right now. This performance not only honors his memory, but also sets a new standard for excellence for this entire base." Those words hit Steele like bullets. Suddenly, the full consequences of the situation were crystal clear in his mind. He had publicly humiliated and mocked the daughter of a fallen war hero, a child who possessed skills that far exceeded anyone under his command. Worse, he had done it in front of witnesses, soldiers who had already begun to whisper, some secretly taking photos with their phones. The story would spread across the base before the day was out and far beyond. How is this possible? Steele finally managed to stammer out his voice, sounding strange and distant. How can a child shoot like that? Maya looked him straight in the eye for the first time. "My father taught me that respect is earned through action, not words. He taught me that when someone doubts you based on prejudice, the best way to respond is to show them exactly what you can do." The powerful simplicity of her answer struck everyone like lightning. A 12-year-old girl was teaching a lesson in dignity and competence to senior officers, the very men who were supposed to be her role models. Rodriguez stepped even closer. "Ms. Johnson, your father used to say you had a natural talent, but he never specified. He never said that you—" He stopped searching for the right words. "Would you like to try demonstrating your skills at a longer distance?" Rodriguez asked, his voice now filled with respect. Maya's eyes gleamed with genuine interest. "What distance are you thinking of, Sergeant? 100 yards, 200 yards, or any distance within my comfort zone?" Steele watched this exchange with growing horror. He realized that his humiliation was only just beginning. The child he had tried to publicly break was about to demonstrate skills that made his own military competence look amateur. More soldiers had joined the crowd, drawn by the whispers that were spreading through the base like wildfire. Some veterans came forward with genuine respect in their eyes, recognizing that something special was happening. Maya checked her weapon once more. Her fluid professional movements were in stark contrast to the growing anxiety of the officers who had underestimated her. "Sergeant Rodriguez, 200 yards would be a good next step." In that moment, Steele realized a terrible truth. This little girl, Maya Johnson, hadn't just come to prove a point. She had come to teach a lesson about prejudice, competence, and respect that no one present would ever forget. And the lesson had only just begun. 6 months after the day that shook Fort Braxton, Maya Johnson walked through the base's hallways with a gold badge around her neck, base-level precision marksmanship instructor, the Army's Excellence in Talent program. At 13 years old, she had become the youngest person in U.S. military history to receive such official recognition. That fateful morning had turned into a legendary performance. After 200 yards, Maya continued to shoot at distances of 300, 400, and 500 yards. Each distance revealed a nearly impossible level of precision as she hit a coin-sized target at 500 yards using only iron sights. Combat veterans openly wept, witnessing a miracle. Videos of her performance, secretly recorded by soldiers, went viral globally. "Little Girl Humbles Racist Colonel with Impossible Shot" garnered 47 million views in 2 weeks. Maya became a global symbol for overcoming prejudice. For Colonel Steele, the consequences were devastating and decisive. A military investigation uncovered a pattern of systemic discriminatory behavior. Dozens of military families came forward with similar experiences. The photos of Steele mocking Maya went viral on military social media with captions like, "The man who underestimated a legend." Steele was demoted, transferred to a remote base in Alaska, and assigned basic administrative duties. His dream of an honorable military retirement turned into a quiet and shameful exit. To make it even more humiliating, he now worked under the supervision of Black and Hispanic officers who knew his story all too well. Major Thompson and Captain Williams faced official reprimands and were required to attend diversity and respect training. Their careers never fully recovered from the stain of having participated in a child's public humiliation. Meanwhile, Maya blossomed in ways no one had anticipated. The Pentagon created a special program that allowed her to combine regular schooling with advanced military training. Prestigious universities vied to offer her full scholarships. Military equipment companies wanted to sponsor her development. More importantly, she inspired an entire generation. Children from underprivileged communities sent letters telling how Maya's story motivated them to pursue what seemed like impossible dreams. Little black girls in particular saw her as proof that competence and determination were stronger than prejudice. Rodriguez, promoted to staff sergeant for his exemplary conduct, became Maya's official mentor. "Your father would be bursting with pride," he said one afternoon, watching Maya train new recruits who listened to her with absolute reverence. "But I think he'd be even prouder of the woman of character you're becoming." The firing range where it all began was renamed the David Johnson Memorial Range in honor of Maya's father. A bronze plaque tells the story of that transformative day, a permanent reminder that excellence can emerge from the most unexpected places. Maya still visits her father's grave every Saturday, but now she doesn't cry. Instead, she tells him about the new records, the achievements, and the prejudices she broke that week. "I did it, Dad," she always whispers at the end. "I showed them what we can do." The entire base was changed. A zero-tolerance policy for discrimination was implemented. Programs to scout for talent in underprivileged communities became a priority. Maya's story was told in every leadership training session as an example of how prejudice can blind people to extraordinary potential. The greatest irony was that Steele had inadvertently created the exact opposite of what he intended. Instead of humiliating Maya, he had given her a perfect stage to shine in front of witnesses who would never forget what they saw. His attempt to belittle her became the catalyst for the single greatest transformation in the base's history. In a television interview, Maya was asked if she held a grudge against Colonel Steele. Her answer showed wisdom far beyond her years. "He gave me the greatest gift possible, the opportunity to prove him wrong about me. Sometimes our biggest adversaries become our greatest teachers, even if they don't mean to." Maya Johnson had learned the most valuable lesson: the best revenge is not destroying those who try to bring you down, but growing so much that your achievements become impossible to ignore. She turned humiliation into motivation, prejudice into fuel, and underestimation into pure determination. The little girl who walked into the officers' club to ask permission to honor her father had become a force of nature, rewriting the rules of human potential, prejudice, and the transformative power of never underestimating someone based on their appearance.